Ringo Starr, born Richard Starkey on July 7, 1940, in Liverpool, grew up in a world of noise and hardship. German bombs fell nightly during his infancy, shaking the small home at 9 Madron Street where his parents tried to stay calm. His father, Richard Starkey Sr., a baker, drifted away early and left for good when Ringo was just 3. His mother, Elsie, became the center of his small world, working as a cleaner by day and a barmaid by night to keep a roof over their heads. When he was 6, his appendix burst, and what should have been a routine surgery turned into a year-long battle for life. He developed peritonitis, slipped into a coma, and spent months in a hospital bed, missing school and falling far behind. When he finally came home at 8, he could barely read or count but kept going without complaint. At 13, tuberculosis struck his school, and Ringo was sent to a sanitarium for 2 years. He was lonely with no friends and little hope, until a nurse handed him a makeshift drum and told him to hit it for fun. That sound changed everything. A health worker later gave him a record called Bedtime for Drums, and Ringo became obsessed. Music gave him purpose. In his rough Dingle neighborhood, gangs ruled the streets and violence was constant. He joined one to survive but found more peace in rhythm than in fighting. At 16, while working as an apprentice machinist, he met Roy Trafford, who shared his love of skiffle music. They played in the factory basement, and when Ringo's stepfather bought him a drum kit for Christmas in 1957, his life took shape. He joined the Eddie Clayton Skiffle group and played his first show at the Cavern Club. 2 years later, he was drumming for Rory Storm in the Hurricanes. He started calling himself Ringo Starr because of his rings and the stage nickname Star Time. By 1960, his band was more popular in Liverpool than the Beatles, and when they went to Hamburg, Germany to play in clubs, Ringo experienced the chaos and wild nightlife that hardened the early rock scene. He first played with John Lennon, Paul McCartney, and George Harrison in 1960, filling in for Pete Best. 2 years later, when Pete kept missing shows, Ringo was called again, and in August 1962, he officially became a Beatle. But the fans weren't happy. At the Cavern Club, people shouted, "Pete forever, Ringo never." And George was even headbutt. Ringo was heckled and threatened in the streets. When producer George Martin replaced him with another drummer during one early session, Ringo feared he'd be fired. But his steady left-handed playing on a right-handed drum kit gave the Beatles their distinctive swing. He worked tirelessly, practicing every day to prove he belonged. As fame exploded, the pressure grew. In 1964, he collapsed with tonsillitis before a world tour, and was temporarily replaced by Jimmy Nicol. Watching someone else sit behind his drums was agony, but when he rejoined in Australia, the crowds roared for him. The Beatles' rise was unstoppable. When they landed in New York in February 1964, thousands of fans screamed his name. His good humor and charm made him the heart of Beatlemania, though exhaustion and stress shadowed the fun. Filming A Hard Day's Night made him a star in his own right, but by 1965's Help, and the turbulent 1966 Manila tour, the joy had turned to tension. The band was accused of snubbing the First Lady of the Philippines, and government thugs attacked them at the airport. The fear bonded them, but the cracks were showing. During the recording of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, Ringo felt left out while John and Paul experimented endlessly. "I learned to play chess," he joked, sitting through hours of takes. By 1968, after constant criticism and tension, he walked out of Abbey Road Studios, telling the others he felt unloved. They begged him back, covering his drum kit in flowers that read, "Welcome back, Ringo." As the Beatles neared their end, heroin, jealousy, and creative clashes tore them apart. Ringo watched helplessly as John spiraled, and in 1970, he became the messenger when Paul was asked to delay his solo album. Paul exploded, shouting in Ringo's face. A few months later, Paul announced the Beatles were over. Ringo found out through the news and fell into depression, unsure of who he was without the band. When Paul sued the others to dissolve the partnership, Ringo sided with him, ending the fragile brotherhood for good. Still, he carried on. His solo single It Don't Come Easy and the B-side early 1970 revealed his heartbreak over the split. In 1973, his song Photograph, written with George Harrison, became a global hit and his biggest solo triumph. Yet the spotlight faded quickly, and by the late 1970s, Ringo was drowning in alcohol and cocaine. His first marriage to Maureen Cox had already fallen apart after she had an affair with George. Ringo's own infidelities and drinking made things worse. They divorced in 1975, and though he paid support generously, his life spun out of control. By the late 1970s, Ringo's addiction had become lethal. He drank up to 16 bottles of wine a day, rarely ate, and lost entire years of memory. His home with Barbara Bach, whom he met while filming Caveman in 1981, turned into a blur of parties and fights. One morning in 1988, he woke to find the house destroyed and Barbara bruised and bloodied. Horrified, they both checked into rehab in Arizona and have remained sober ever since. Their marriage, born from chaos, became one of the most enduring in show business. Ringo's career took many strange turns. His 1969 film The Magic Christian with Peter Sellers was meant as satire, but left him embarrassed by its excesses. He tried furniture design in the 1970s with Robin Cruikshank, creating extravagant pieces like tables with Rolls-Royce grills, but the business collapsed. In the 1980s, he became the beloved narrator of Thomas the Tank Engine, his calm voice comforting millions of children. When producers replaced him with George Carlin after a contract dispute, fans were furious, and Ringo quietly moved on. He found new joy in 1989 when he formed the All-Star Band, a rotating group of famous musicians who toured the world for decades. The first shows were shaky, but audiences wept seeing him behind the drums again. In 1998, he released Vertical Man featuring Paul, George, and rock legends like Tom Petty and Ozzy Osbourne. When George mailed in his guitar parts, Ringo cried, realizing how much their friendship still meant. The years mellowed him. He poured his energy into the Lotus Foundation, a charity supporting addiction recovery and humanitarian causes. His artwork, including colorful spin paintings powered by a Rolls-Royce engine, raised millions for charity. But controversy followed when the Pandora Papers revealed offshore trusts in Panama and the Bahamas tied to his earnings. No evidence of wrongdoing surfaced, but the whispers reminded the world that even icons are not immune to scrutiny. In 2024, while on tour at age 84, Ringo fell ill before a Philadelphia show and had to cancel concerts for the first time in years. Fans were worried, though he assured everyone he still felt fit as a fiddle. Then came his 85th birthday in July 2025. What should have been a light-hearted celebration turned deeply emotional. During his annual Peace and Love moment, he broke down in tears while mourning John and George publicly for the first time. The event, once a small gathering in Chicago, had grown into a global ritual broadcast across 30 countries. NASA even beamed his message to the moon and back.